Have you ever wondered if Plana is pro-life or pro-choice? Have you wondered if we have an agenda about anything in particular with our app? Well, today we're going to find out with our co-founder and president, Phoebe Enterman, here on the Plan a Good Life podcast. Tell me a little bit about yourself. You're an Australian living in Las Vegas in the United States. Why?
Yeah, that's the question I get asked every single time I meet someone. It's always like, oh, you have a funny accent. Where are you from? Why did you move here? And then I end up just like telling them about Plana every single time. Yeah, I moved here 2 years ago, almost exactly, to co-found Plana, an organization designed to help women who have unplanned pregnancies.
Wow. That's a lot. Like, can you tell us how old you are? What you are?
You're tapping into the vault now.
Well, you
Not
just
many
said
people.
to just hit you with the big question. So I'm
Not
like,
many people. I'm 24 years old.
Wow. Okay. And you co-founded this organization. What is your role at Plana?
The president and co-founder of the organization.
Do you ever get people that are like, how old are you? And are you old enough to be doing this?
All the time, because with this baby face and being 5'2", not very tall, people are just like, are you old enough to be doing this? But usually when people hear about Plana and they hear about like the mission, then they're just like, oh, cool, and they just like get on board. But yeah, certainly not an easy thing to be like so young and to move countries and to kind of like discover a whole new place. It's certainly got its ups and downs, but I'm having fun.
Good. Now, what was in your background, or where did you come from in life that led up to this point, becoming the president and the co-founder of an organization? Like, how did that process happen?
Yeah, I think that's like such an asked question that whenever I'm talking at conferences or different things, people are very curious about, because the origin story of someone in this kind of role is usually like, I had an unplanned pregnancy at 17 and like this was my story. And so people are very like a bit confused when I'm like, I didn't have an unplanned pregnancy. Okay, well, why are you in this space? You're not a mother, so you've never been through pregnancy, so why are you in this space? And I think like it's a hard thing to explain, because to be completely honest, I didn't really think much about it before, 2.5 years ago. Like the whole kind of pro-choice, pro-life debate's not, I won't say it's not much of a thing in Australia, but it's less of a thing in Australia. It wasn't something that I grew up like knowing much about or discussing very much. My mum was an unplanned pregnancy. And so, of course, like, I have an idea of, amazing things can come out of unplanned pregnancies. But I think the biggest thing for me was I didn't really identify with either side. I am Christian, and as a Christian young woman in my teen years and in my college years, I knew that like I should be pro-life, but everything about the pro-choice movement was like designed for me, right? The good social media, the marketing, the technology, like the narrative of like, this is the thing that it like empowers young women. This is the thing, if you're a feminist, or if you're, interested in women's rights, or if you're an independent woman, like the pro-choice movement is the place for you. And so I think I just felt really conflicted. I didn't really like think about it too much, but when I thought about it, I was like, I think I should be pro-life, but I kind of identify more with pro-choice, not really like pro-abortion, but the pro-choice movement. My body, my choice. That makes sense. And so when I was pushed to the place of actually thinking about it, I was like, there has to be something else, either some other approach or, just some other third space where I was like, the pro-life movement feels irrelevant to me as an individual. the pro-choice movement seems attractive, but not really aligning with my morals. Where do I fit in? Where do I support? And I think Plana was really born out of that.
Yeah. So did you have an inclination as a younger person to like political issues? Just in general, like what would you say your like political leaning was? Or just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say, again, like in Australia, it's just not, it's very different to the US. Like I didn't know what anyone around me voted. I barely knew what my parents voted. Like it's just, at least in the circles that I ran in, like politics was a very private matter, something that you decide on your own and vote on your own, but it doesn't you don't identify with a political leaning. And so, coming to the US and starting this with this very like, I just want to help women, right? I want to give women the opportunities that I was given. Like, I feel like I was given so many incredible opportunities growing up, and people that said, what do you want to do with your life? And I want to give that to women in a really vulnerable time. And then everyone's like, what's your political leaning? I feel like I was always a bit more on the conservative side just because I'm a Christian, and I'd usually, align with like Christian values and family values. But then there was things kind of across the board that I was interested in, and I like taking things issue by issue as opposed to like a full kind of spectrum of things. That's kind of my background, and so only since moving to the US have I been like, oh wow, like people talk about this a lot more. This is definitely not the private matter that I grew up thinking it was.
Yeah, and I guess because we're both from Australia, like it's been a very eye-opening thing, like coming here and being, like I've had to think about it a lot more. I was raised, my family were actually quite conservative, and they were very vocal about that, and the wider family used to get together and like, but everyone kind of had the same opinion. But I never really realized that you could be, you could just take the issues as they were, and you don't have to have this political affiliation like that kind of like pigeonholes you in the one place. So with that kind of in mind, like what, how do you see Plana fitting into that debate? Because everyone always wants to know when you talk about Plana, okay, so are you pro-life? Are you pro-choice? Like, where does Plana land on this, and how do you navigate those two sides?
Yeah, and I think that, again, like I probably came in with an Australian naivete, right, of like, I don't vote in this country, so technically I'm apolitical, so I can create this organization to just help women. But like everyone wants to pull us back into the debate. And I understand, because people want you to be transparent. They want to know what you believe so that they can like interact with you in a meaningful way. But I think the thing that I was raised with is like, it wasn't about being, in Australia, it's Liberal or Labor, right? Here it's like Democrat, Republican. I was very much raised with like, you're not a Democrat or a Republican, like you're a Christian, and then where it aligns with the Bible, like the different issues take that. And I think that's very much my own like personal philosophy. And yeah, sure, that's going to end a little more conservative on a lot of issues, not all issues. But I wanted Plana to be, like, hey, we're Christians first and foremost. Let's look at how Jesus approached, people who were around him. Let's look at how Jesus approached the marginalized in this society. There's Christians on all sides of the political spectrum. So I don't think it's one thing, but in terms of like life, the issue of life, pro-choice, pro-life, we are an organization that is faith-based, and we support two pathways. If a woman chooses motherhood or if a woman chooses adoption, right? Primarily because they're the two pathways I think need more support. I don't think Planned Parenthood needs more support in what they're doing, right? I think they're growing quite rapidly. But in these two areas, I think there's room for growth. And that's why we did that. At the same time, that we are faith-based. I do believe that we should protect the lives of vulnerable young women. We should protect the lives of vulnerable babies in our society. And so in that way, we're very strong. But we aren't the pro-life that you would imagine. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the point that I am most interested in. And we actually are about to have an article coming out in the Evie magazine, right, which is a conservative publication, but the title is Pro-Life Redefined. And I think that's the point that I want to look at. We are pro-life, sure, because we believe in the life of babies and the quality of life for mothers. But I'm not going to go picketing outside an abortion facility. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to resort to deception to convince women to make a certain choice. I don't agree with untrained, peer counselors who aren't licensed professionals counseling women in a really vulnerable time. And then on the pro-choice side, I think learning about your body and your anatomy is fantastic. I think giving women more information is really, really great. I think pushing abortion as, a really awesome solution that you can get a pill in the mail and have no doctor's oversight, I think that's terrible. I think women are not being informed enough and aren't being shown that, hey, you actually have more choices than that. And I want you to take a breath, and I want you to really look at your life before you make such a big decision. So all that to say, I think we naturally lean a little bit more conservative because we are a faith-based organization. There's things in the pro-life movement I love and I admire. There's things that I really don't like. There's things in the pro-choice movement that I like and I think are really attractive to young women. But then there's things I don't like there. And so I and a few co-founders created Plana to be redefining pro-life. And I think redefining pro-choice as well, like more choices. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the kind of gist of how we fall. I don't want to identify with either of them because of the preconceived notions, but we, at the end of the day, are a faith-based organization that offer adoption and motherhood. And so, that's important for us to be transparent about.
Yeah, I love that. What in your, personal... I guess because you're saying that we're a faith-based organization, that's a really important point. And, yeah, people will be like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
That's going to mean one thing. As soon as you say that you're Christians, that means you're going to be this in particular. What I guess even in your own personal faith journey, what part of that, I don't know how to word the question, but is what part of faith or theology, if you get what I'm saying, colors Plana? What's an important thing that you believe about God or that is true, that you believe is true, that kind of guides how we...
Yeah, and I think this is there's such an important question to know the why behind the design. Firstly, I believe in a God of love. The Bible says he who does not love does not even know God because God is love. I think that has to be the primary thing. And I think in one of the earlier documents about our identity as an organization, we wrote something along the lines of, when people fall short of God's design, how we react shows more about us than about other people, right? So I think, having an organization that's designed around showing love to women who find themselves in an unplanned pregnancy or who are struggling through motherhood or adoption, or if they come to us and they've had an abortion, how we show love and we show support in that time. I think a big thing for me is the concept of free choice, which is something that's really hard as Christians, but free choice and the abundant life. I think these are two things that are really big in how I saw how we designed Plana. Jesus says, I've come that you may have life and have it more abundantly. He wants us to live this vibrant, beautiful life. But he doesn't force us to do that. God could have taken away the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and given humans no choice but to love him. But he says that love can only exist in a society that free choice exists. And so I feel the same with what we do at Plana. I want women to have babies and to either mother them or to place them with a parent who longs to have a connection to a little baby. I want to see children growing up in loving families and women being supported and, finding jobs and finding partners and finding fulfillment in their life and moving from a state of maybe desperation to one of flourishing. I want to see that. But if you are forcing that onto a woman, I think that's like opposite to God, right? And so this comes to like a piece that in our counseling sessions with a licensed clinical counselor, if a young woman wants to explore abortion, we will be factually and intellectually honest with her. We won't resort to tricks or emotional manipulation. We will talk with her and we will share the medical information. We'll share just everything relevant to her and that as she explores, why do you want to look into this? For a lot of women, it's, hey, my boyfriend told me to. Is this what you want? And some Christians don't like that, right? And I understand why. But yeah, I just think Jesus gives us the choice, and he wants so badly for us to choose the abundant life, but he loves us so much that he allows us to choose. And that is like the underpinning, I think, of everything we've created here at Plana. I want so badly for these women to choose a life of flourishing, but I respect them enough to give them all their options. And I think they're intelligent enough to choose the right path for them.
And how does Plana kind of make that choice easier on the girl or less burdensome?
Yeah, because it's the idea of like, if not all the choices are easily accessible, can you really be pro-choice,
Sure.
right? I think like you've got to. We were on the UNLV campus the other day, and we were doing like street interviews with girls, and like all of them, I was like, oh, so like where would you go for like resources if you had an unplanned pregnancy? And all of them were like, I don't know, like maybe I'd go here, maybe I'd go there. I think that you need to be able to, in your options counseling, which options counseling in and of itself, not done enough, right? Like informed consent in an unplanned pregnancy situation, we need more of that. And that's what we're trying to do. And so...
Why is that? Is that because everyone has an agenda when they're counseling?
I don't think it's quite that cynical. I do think a lot of people have an agenda. I think a lot of really, really great clinics or resources are just understaffed and are like, a lot of them are volunteer-led or whatever, and they have a certain level of, whether it be training or education, different things like that. A lot of girls just look on TikTok. That's not a great like place to find informed consent. So yeah, I think it's just a mixture of a very fragmented industry and agendas and a couple different things. But yeah, how do we make those? How do we like elevate those choices? Right? Is you've got to show a clear path of each of them and lay it out before her and tailor it to her circumstances. Right? Like it's probably for a woman who, is in and out of housing, has a really unstable or toxic relationship, like motherhood might not be the best for her, but adoption could be a brilliant solution. But for a woman who, has all the basic needs, seems, emotionally capable of raising a child, and she goes, yeah, like I think I'd like to be a mother. Well, that's great. Let's again like paint the pathway and the steps so that she can go, okay, deep breath. I can focus on picking the right path for me, not stressing so much about what paths are available, how do I even get to those paths, what do they look like, what's the end outcome, what's everyone going to say. I think that's informed consent.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, how do you kind of, because if you say, you're essentially, or you're redefining pro-life, so you are wanting, that is the way that you're going, how do you build trust with people that maybe have the opposite political viewpoint? They're like, hey, you are not supporting the abortion route, so we don't have any common ground here. How do you address that?
Yeah, because I think that's one thing. Like, we don't refer for abortions. Like, practically, like, I don't think we need to refer. You literally just type in like Planned Parenthood and just like book an appointment. So I'm like, in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't do much. But like philosophically, as an organization, we don't refer for abortion. But yeah, building trust is like, it's just built over time. And I think transparency, like what we're realizing now, we're about to come up to our 2-year anniversary as an organization. What I'm realizing now is, like, I'm a really private person and I don't want to be sharing my views or, getting into the nitty-gritty in front of a camera. But if I can't be transparent about like my motivations and who I am and what I believe and what Plana as an organization believes, we're not going to be able to build trust. I think as well, like, you've got to go through the channels that everyone else has to go through. You can't just be like, oh, like, I'm a Christian, you should trust me. And so, having licensed counselors, I think, is a really big thing. Going through audits of your financials, of, your cybersecurity practices. We're doing a HIPAA compliance framework. We're doing a SOC 2, which is all your like data security. Like, everyone has to do this. We shouldn't get a pass because we're a nonprofit. In fact, we should work harder, right? Because we're working with vulnerable women. And so, like, my dream is, like, I don't think anyone on the like pro-abortion side of things is really going to like Plana because we're faith-based. And I just think I'm not going to like Plana, but I want like Planned Parenthood to respect Plana.
Yeah.
Right? Like even if you are the most pro-choice person and you are super pro-abortion, I want them to say, I don't like Plana because, they are faith-based and they are supporting, they don't support abortion, but like, if there's anyone that I'm going to respect, it's going to be the way they do it.
And shout out if you want to work with us.
Yeah.
Contact us.
If you have girls that are, wanting to explore their options, like, we're a great resource for that.
Yeah, and if they don't want to go that way, then send them to us.
Yeah.
You can trust us.
Yeah, and I hope, one day when we're big enough to get like secret shoppers, I hope they go, I'm going to log in as a Plana client. I'm going to tear them down. And then they get on and they just get like factual, licensed, trained people, ready to empathetic care, all the things that they need. And they're like, dang it, we got nothing. Plana is a very reputable and respectable organization.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. Okay, so you mentioned that Plana's been going for 2 years now. What in your mind has worked or hasn't worked? Like, what are you like, okay, let's take a breather and like reevaluate here?
I think our approach has worked. Like, the concept of an app to put together all of the resources a young woman needs in an unplanned pregnancy. Like, to this day, like even today, you and I were on a call together and someone was just like, this is incredible. I've been waiting for this for 20 years. Like I feel like I can go now because this work is being done, which was so encouraging to hear. But everywhere we go, people tell us, this is incredible. This is so innovative. Like, this has the potential to change the world. This is the right approach. Like, all these different things. So I think the approach is really good. I think our team is awesome. I think our branding is on tone. we've had a lot of people be like, wow, your website is so calm. It's not crisis oriented. It's so empowerment oriented. It feels so native. It feels like, you know, a women's wellness app that I would download for X, Y, and Z. So I think that the tone, the branding, our app, I think the way we serve clients is great. Like, I have an awesome testimonial back from our first client, which is super exciting. I think the one thing that we've struggled with is our positioning, right? Everyone wants you to pick a side. Everyone wants you to be vehemently pro-life or vehemently pro-choice. And if you don't want to get in a box, or in my case, if you want to be private and you don't want to share, then people are just going to be like, oh, like that organization's nice. But if you're a nice organization, that's like the death of an organization. You don't want to be a nice organization. You want to be like bold and impactful. And so I think like my own personal hesitancy to be transparent about what I believe and what motivates me as a founder, I've probably learnt lessons from that. I think if you focus, and you know, like I don't want to offend all the amazing, like really selfless people in the pro-life movement who, you know, I chatted to the director of a pregnancy clinic in Australia who said she hadn't taken a wage for like 9 years to get their clinic up and running. And I'm like, the selflessness of people who will start a clinic, start a resource, you know, start a center from their church, completely volunteer, completely free. Like, I admire that so much. But there are methods in the way of doing things that I don't like for some clinics. I'm not saying for all of them. But I've been so timid to, like, say anything because I don't want to offend anyone. And then on the left, I'm like, I respect a lot of the people who have good medical counseling or have good whatevers. And I want them to like Plana. And so I don't want to say anything against them either. And so I think it's me. I've been focused on what we're not saying for so long that I think people are like, what are you saying? If you focus so much on what you're not saying, I don't think you end up saying anything at all. And so I think people who've been like, oh, like Plana's really cool, or Plana's really nice, or Plana's a really good idea. But I think just now we're starting to wake up to, we want to be trusted. That's one of our values. You can't be trusted unless you're transparent, like fully transparent. Like, we'll answer any question and we'll not shy away and we'll not try and cover anything up. I don't think it was malicious intent. I think it was naivety. But now that we're hitting 2 years old, now that we have, you know, an app that works, we have real clients coming through and testimonials, I think we're becoming so much more bold in our positioning, in who we are, in what we want to say, not just what we don't want to say.
So what has it kind of been like? I mean, I've been there, but I want everyone else to get a picture of this is a startup. It really started from scratch.
Yeah.
What is that process like of trying to get something that doesn't exist to exist? I don't think anyone knows the level of, or a lot of people don't have an appreciation for just the mammoth effort that is. So speak a little bit about that.
I had an eye twitch for a little bit. And it only stopped like a week ago. And I went up to our CFO, who's like a long-time healthcare administrator, and he was like, "Oh, you're young for starting an eye twitch this early." I was like, "No, yeah." I am getting some grey hairs. You can't see it probably in this light, but they're coming through. I'm really proud of them. It is, it's harder and easier than I thought it would be. Like, I came into this at 22 years old, fresh off the back of my postgrad. No, I was just finishing the first year of Plana, I was finishing my master's.
Which was in what, by the way?
I did a master's of business in nonprofit management and philanthropy.
Okay, so you're really in your field.
So like Plana, like smart solutions using technology, like really, really smart nonprofits who create like systemic solutions. Like, oh man, I love that. How can we use like business brilliance to solve like social issues? So of course, like women's health, technology, nonprofit, like Plana is like my dream. What was the original question? How's the startup life like? I came like fresh off of my studies, like, you know, moved to the US, started an organization, 22 years old. And everything that I thought was going to be hard was actually like pretty easy. And everything that I thought was going to be really like pretty easy is just like so difficult and time consuming. Man, like networking, I was a COVID university student. I made it 5 weeks into my undergrad and got shut down by COVID. So like networking just wasn't, lucky I'm very talkative and social, but just being like, man, moving to a new country and then starting an organization is so difficult because you don't have the people you can just call up. Oh, I know a guy that you just got to kind of like make that network. That's been difficult. I think finding the right people for your team, we've just been so blessed. I think God has really just brought this team together. But finding the right people for your team when you don't know anybody is really difficult. The things like designing the app and designing the branding, like I feel like all that stuff just came very easily. Like we all just were like, this is exactly what we want it to look like. We want it to do this. You know, managing and actually getting done is always a little bit more difficult. But yeah, working with the software engineering team has been like a lot of fun. And the designs have always been really great. But finding the right people and really it's just the relentless like faith that it's going to happen. One of my co-founders who's much more experienced in like tech ventures just told me that like if you just keep doing it, like it will happen. And that was such a great piece of advice for me because there's been times like on launch week, at the start of this year, even like to last week that I'm just like, man, like is this going to happen? Like I am breaking my back here trying to make this happen. I'm so tired and everything's so discouraging. And then we get a call like today and then we get our first client in. And you really just got to have the resilience to manage the moments where you're just like, I'm so tired and I'm so discouraged and I could just go somewhere else and do a 9-to-5 and peacefully live my life. And you've just got to hang in there to the moments that are like, oh, this is why this happened, or this is why we couldn't hire someone because this person was coming for the team. Or this is the introduction that, you know, I think God was keeping us for. So yeah, difficult, easy, fun, a bit demoralizing. But all in all, like, very meaningful to like start seeing now after 2 years of just grinding. Wow, we've actually changed some people's lives.
And it's like that snowball effect, right? It takes so long and so much effort at the beginning and starting to speed up a little bit now. And I think you're the perfect person for this job because if you don't know Phoebe, 10 out of 10 would recommend human being.
I pay to say that.
So motivated and so, I don't know, I'm so inspired. Like when I watch you, I'm just like, wow, what a cool person. And just, anyway, all the things. But I kind of want to figure out what kind of drives you and what motivates you because, yeah, you said you haven't had an unplanned pregnancy before. What like kind of makes you tick as a person?
Yeah, what drives me, what motivates me? I had this like the reason I picked my postgrad in nonprofit management and philanthropy was I did my undergrad in economics and management, and I loved like the systemic thinking. I loved all the high level like management and how you thought, use behavioral economics to solve problems. I just love business and everything around that. But I worked in a software company and I loved, working there. It was such a great opportunity. But just being like, every quarter you're having the same meeting about how we're going to meet our sales quotas and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And then every it's the last week of the month and quick. And it was just like every quarter, not like just going for the bottom dollar. And I still think that work needs to be done. Software needs to be sold. But I was just like, no, I need a creative outlet and I need to see that people's lives are being impacted by my work. And I think one of the biggest things was, I don't think it was guilt, but like just an overwhelming sense of like, I've been blessed. If I don't spend my life using that platform to bless other people, it will all be a waste. But yeah, just like having a really, probably around like 18, 19, 20, having this real like, wow, I had people around me that like championed me. I had people around me that, invested in my education and invested in like developing me and having conversations with me and took me seriously and never like talked down to me. And just being like, so many women don't get that opportunity. So many women don't get the opportunity to grow up and focus on their studies and to, have affirming, loving parents, and so many women, they might want all these things and then an unplanned pregnancy happens. And it's like, I want to make sure that woman has the opportunity to plan the life that she dreams for. Because yeah, if I just take what I've been given and have a good life, like what's the point of that? And so then I was like, okay, I need to do something post-grad to develop this. And so I was like, okay, nonprofits, like that's the space I want to be in. Businesses running well for the benefit of other people.
It's amazing because you could really be doing anything that you want. Like you could be climbing the corporate ladder and, doing something exciting like that. But here you are, and it is making a big impact. So,
and I also think like I was sharing with a friend recently, like personally, there's no place like the presence of God, right? And it's funny for me to talk so much about faith because to our clients, we are not overtly faith-based, right? Like, sure, they can check our website and they'll see that we're faith-based, but like we don't talk about faith in the counseling room when they come in, right? This is a medical level organization, but like to understand what motivates me personally, I'm like, there is no place like the presence of God. Knowing that you're doing His will and knowing that His will is for the ultimate good of you and those around you, like that's the place I want to be. And yeah, I think it helps you intersect with so many other people. Every single person in our office is like a 10 out of 10 who are so like kind and empathetic and so values driven. I love that workplace compared to a lot of like the cutthroat corporate workplaces. I'm like, no, I get to work with legends who are like so altruistic and so awesome. So I like that.
Yeah, that's great. How like, what do you think like helps stimulate creativity? This is just a bit random, but I'm like, when I watch you, I'm like, wow, she's so creative and you can just come up with things. And I'm like, I would like to become more like that. But how does that come about? There's just so many good ideas. I'm like, if we could use all the ideas, we really would change the world,
I don't know. Like I do, like personally, everyone's been telling me to get on TikTok recently because I've been resisting having a TikTok account my whole life. I've been like, no, I draw the line with Instagram. I'm thoroughly Gen Z. Like obviously the basic things like creating more space to reflect, to be bored, to, to not just be like programmed with social media and whatever. I think for me personally, like, I think being smart and being wise are very different. You can have smart people that are not very wise, or you can have very not smart people who are very wise. And like the Bible does say that wisdom is a gift from God. And so I'm like, man, if I come up with any good ideas, like I'm just like, wisdom is a gift from God.
Yeah.
And he gives that gift to us. And I think he says, it says like, ask for wisdom and he will give it liberally, right? So I don't know. I'd say, yeah, creating space for boredom, trying to minimize the noise, asking God for wisdom. And then as well, like I think different brains were just created for different output.
Sure.
You know, the most creative people I know cannot manage an email, right? And the most like detail-oriented, like goal-getter, email scheduling, calendaring people, like can't have a big idea. You know, obviously that's a generalization. But I don't know, I think different brains are created maybe for different work. And a good team has all of them.
Yeah. I guess it's that whole
Because I'm like,
idea.
you and I together are like yin and yang.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, so many times. Like I walked on to a flight in Oregon when we were visiting some friends, and we were literally about to walk onto the flight, and Kylie's next to me, and she'd booked the flight for us, and I was just like, oh, I haven't checked in. And we're like about to like cross the thing, and check-in's totally closed by this point.
I'm like, what? You're gonna be stuck here.
And so luckily I could go up and they like checked me in manually and let me come through. But like there's definitely examples of I think when we like, I'm kind of jealous of the way each other's brain works.
Yeah. Well, sometimes Phoebe's like, "Oh, what do you think we should do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. You're the person. What am I doing?"
Or there'll be sometimes Kylie will be like, "Oh, I'll schedule that meeting because I know that Phoebe
not
will
gonna happen.
never get to it." So yeah, I don't know. I think there's like, I don't know. There's definitely a level that we can like develop skills and whatever, but I just think a good team has a lot of people with very different like brain capacities and for different types of work. It's my hot take. Harvard Business Review, come and get me.
Great. I love it. Okay, so one of Plana's big things is making adoption more accessible and marketing it better, because we don't see that that's been the case. There's a lot of, like, the statistics will show us that domestic infant adoptions, at least here in the US, are very low, very like almost non-existent for the population size. How is Plana kind of like putting that on the forefront of this conversation?
Yeah, we were it's such an interesting thing because like now that we're coming up to it like 2 years, it's a really interesting shift because I think who are we and what we do has been like the question all along, right? And we were founded on the idea of like making an unplanned pregnancy situation like accessible to good resources, but also on the concept of you have a woman with an unplanned pregnancy. She looks down, at a pregnancy test. And it's positive, and she feels like her life's over. And you have a woman with infertility who looks down at a negative test, and she feels like her life is over. And the concept of like, can we switch these tests? And at that point, we were fully envisioning becoming like an adoption-only organization. We were like, okay, you've got Planned Parenthood's obviously doing the whole abortion thing. You've got crisis pregnancy clinics that are doing a lot of motherhood. And then adoption agencies are doing adoption, but there's nothing really like bridging adoption to adoption agencies, like women to adoption agencies, and really kind of creating an experience there. And so we started with that. And I don't think maybe we were planning to serve mothers as well. I don't actually know if we knew what we were planning to do. We were just like, oh, let's just build this thing. And then as we built it, like we talked to our adoption agency that we work with, and they were like, hey, usually when women get more support in an unplanned pregnancy situation who were considering adoption, like a lot of them are like, wait, I can do this, and they choose motherhood. And so they were telling us, they were like, hey, with the level of support you guys are providing, like this is nuts. You actually might have a lot of women who are wanting to choose motherhood, which we were like, oh, okay. And And we always knew that we were setting this up as like an innovation, like an experiment, basically, of like, well, you know, like you said, adoption rates for unplanned pregnancy are like less than 1%. Like, can we build this app that changes it to 2% or 10% or 20%, whatever? So we were like, best case scenario, we prove our hypothesis that more support leads and more education leads to more adoptions in this scenario, which leads to better, you know, outcomes for the mother and the child. And then we were like, wait a minute, we've just developed a whole ecosystem that supports a woman who has an unplanned pregnancy to get through pregnancy, you know, give birth and place for adoption. It's the exact same infrastructure as a woman would need to go choose motherhood, go through her pregnancy, give birth, and become a mother, right? With a few tweaks on like preparing for motherhood. And so we're like, oh, well, I don't know, like let's try it out. Let's open it up and let's see what happens. And like our very first client was like, I'm choosing adoption. And we were like, get out. Really? That's so cool. And I know that she was hand-delivered by God, right?
Sure.
But then the next 7 women that came through were like, hey, I'm looking for motherhood resources. I saw your ad. I saw, like I asked ChatGPT and it gave Plana. And I was like, awesome, that's actually so exciting. Or I Googled you or I looked on TikTok and I found you. And I'm looking for motherhood resources. And we're like, okay, like, well, let's do it. Like, we've built this thing. And so now we're in the stage of being like, all right, if we can get our fundraising piece correct, I'd like to offer both. Like, why not? We've built the system. It's there. It works for both scenarios. I think both pathways are, you know, for the flourishing of women and children. So,
yeah. What do you think are some of the barriers, maybe the myths that need busting from girls that are like, oh, I don't want to choose adoption because X, Y, Z? What are some of those big ticket items, so to speak?
I'm really trying to be more honest and not think about all the things that are going to offend people and just be like, this is what I see. I just don't think a lot of the, like, I don't know. I think branding and positioning is so vital for Gen Z. And so I love a lot of the work that's done, but when we tell stories of women or when we have branding on websites that's like, oh, so sad, like this is such a sad, you know, distressing time, like let us help you because you're so distressed. Now, I'm not having a go at the organizations because I think these are oftentimes really, really good people who are trying to connect with where a woman's at. But I'm like, Planned Parenthood's not saying the, oh, so sad narrative. They're saying, if you come to us, we're going to empower your life. Like, you're going to be like a go-getter feminist woman. Like, this is the messaging. And like, that is the right messaging for this audience, for this generation. And so no wonder that's where people are seeing themselves, because they see sacrifice and hardship and sure, maybe beauty, but the narrative we've been told is it's all about me, it's all about my life and my future and my whatever. So I think the biggest thing is like, how can we share stories of, sure, adoption is hard. Well, firstly, adoption is hard, motherhood is hard, and abortion is hard. There is no easy option here. Choose your hard, right? That's what I think, firstly. Secondly, how can we show, I think stories like Tracy, like, right? We interviewed Tracy. She hasn't had an easy path, for sure, but look at her. She's got a successful career. She has a great relationship with her adoptive son. Like, she is like, hey, I'm glad that I placed for adoption. That was a good choice for me. More stories like that, right? I think that's really cool. You need to paint in the mind, like, this is a great option, And you need to understand the narratives that young women tell themselves and be able to speak in the same language as them. Because the last thing you want is for a young woman to look at your website, look at your social media, look at your video and say, I don't relate to that. And you've just completely lost them, right? So yeah, I think I've always said, if we can reframe adoption as an empowering pathway for women, and it's life-saving for the baby as well, I think that's the way that we can help women maybe see it in a new way. And then you've got to address all the difficult things like, are they just going to take my baby? No, you actually get to choose the family. Just all of the logistical stuff, I think, it just helps to kind of de-stress women.
Yeah. And how are we going to do that?
It's
Is the question.
so much harder than it sounds.
It sounds nice.
I was just so like, and we're going to have a podcast, and we're going to have a YouTube channel, and we're just going to tell everyone that's really good, and everyone's going to love it. And it's like, wow, building a movement is so difficult and time-consuming, and so many pivots, and so much grind and content making. But you just, someone told me, who was it? It was the executive director of a pregnancy resource clinic. And I hope she listens to this, and I hope she remembers it's her. But she was like, I do it one person at a time. And, obviously I don't want to do it one person, like, physically at a time, because it's going to... But, like, one person at a time, like, watching this podcast or watching a reel on social media. And if you think too big, you're going to overwhelm yourself. But if you're consistent with, like, the small, I think that's how you grow and I think multiply a movement. Like, we want to create, we met this lady the other day. She was so cool, so passionate about what we're doing. And then she took you to church and was like, I need to tell everybody about this. This is amazing. It's like that's what we're seeing. They're like mobilizers, right? They're like coming out of nowhere. We don't even have time to manage their impact, but they're just like, we had someone today, I'm going to bring in a resource and fundraise for you.
Thanks, girl.
Praise God. Thank you. I love this. So, yeah.
So you obviously co-founded Plana. Tell me a little bit more about the other co-founders.
Yeah. The original team was myself, Gary Rayner, who is like a multiple-time like tech entrepreneur, Greg Nainani, who has like over 25 years in healthcare and financial administration, and has adopted 2 kids, which is really cool, and Carla Browning, who has a Master's of Counseling, and she developed kind of all of our mentoring and counseling resources. So yeah, like I always just say it like sounds like a bad joke. A nonprofit manager, a tech entrepreneur, a healthcare admin, and a counselor like all start a company together. But yeah, they're all just really good people. And I think, people are always like, you're the young, like, female of the co-founders. Like, are you just like, the pretty face of the organization? And like, what kind of sinister, shadowy co-founders do you have? And I'm like, jump on a booking link. Like, I will literally introduce you to Gary and Greg and Carla. Gary and Greg and I have been working so closely together, and it's just incredible to see people who have had, so much success in the for-profit space being like, okay, this is our time to give back. Like, we want to work on a missional organization. Greg has seen firsthand, his wife's an OBGYN and his 2 daughters are adopted. Gary has 3 daughters, and so, for him thinking like, what's the world that my daughters are going out into? And yeah, just to see these two men who are standing up for like women's rights and the access to healthcare, they're just so great to work with. They are so intelligent. The materials that have been developed, the intention that's gone into this. I love working with our co-founding team.
So I guess, however many months we're into this now, 6 months or so into the launch of the app, what are some of these success stories client-wise that we've had? Any testimonials?
We got our first testimonial, which as a young founder was like, oh, thank goodness, it's working. And so this is, let me pull it up. This is from our very first client who came to us, had kids previously, was, struggling to find the right resources for her, decided that adoption was going to be a great thing for her to be able to, offer a family for a little baby to grow up in. And she gave us this testimonial. Working with Plana has been the most relieving experience of my whole pregnancy. If not for their sincere presence, their efforts in lending a hand when in need, their resourcefulness and their legitimacy, I would be in complete shambles. I'm so grateful for my care coordinator, Meredith. We miss Meredith. We love Meredith. Who always shows up with infectious positivity and a calm that reassures my every nerve while I navigate one of the toughest chapters of my life. I have felt connected to their humanity, seen in a way I have not been seen in a long time, and cared for without measure. A simple thank you wouldn't express the gratitude I feel for this organization and their mission. And getting that after, just the relentless feedback to the app developers, you sending out email after email after email to resources, and to know that, for this young woman and, more now and hopefully, more and more and more all over the US as we start to grow, to hear that one phrase, this has been the most relieving experience of my pregnancy. I'm like, that's exactly what this was designed for. And to be able to hear that, she is setting herself up and this child up for I like it's the concept of this podcast title, right? Plan a good life. And I think that's what we really want women to be able to feel free to do. Really encouraging. I think when you just feel so discouraged when things aren't working, when, it's just not as easy as maybe you anticipated certain things, being like, no, this is worth it. This girl was able to be relieved from the pressure that was around her.
Yeah, wow. And what from that, what's Plana's vision? What's the big vision?
First nationwide pregnancy resource available for women who want to explore their options, and for women who choose motherhood or adoption, to be able to support them through that journey and connect them to what their life is going to look like.
Well, thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge.
Thanks for your questions, Kylie.
It's been great. We'll be back soon.